Welcome back to the stream. I'm Aarnimetsa from PokerStars.com, and this is going to be the second part of our new 9-max Turbo Sit and Goes. And now we are going to go to a slightly higher buy-in level. And there's a T-Show 77's question that are the $7 SNG is much harder from 3.5. I'm thinking that the attainable ROI is probably dropped by something like 2%. So I think they are going to be slightly higher, but if you have beaten the $3.5 games by a lot, I think you are going to be okay with the $7 games as well. I think that for me to play $100 games on live stream would require adding some more delay. And I'd rather keep the delay low. And when we are waiting for the games to start, we can see the graph from the beginning of this session. So it's quite awesome that, but when you are having 3 wins in a session, it's going to be quite awesome. And T-Show says that I started with $70 and made them $200 at $3.5. I think your bankroll is still going to be quite low for $7 games. So there's pretty real possibility in going for broke if you are having less than 30 buy-ins. So I'd recommend staying at the 3.5s to get at least $350 before moving on to $7. Of course, if your bankroll is easily replenishable, then you can go for $7 earlier. But then just remember that going broke is going to be a very, very real possibility. And Silverboy GR, could you please talk about bankroll management? I could, but I usually do better when I have some exact questions. And something like what I think is going to be pretty much the minimal bankroll for someone trying to play 9-max or 6-max sit and goes with a goal. I'm thinking that it's going to... I think the minimal bankroll would be about 50 buy-ins. And that's just to... Even with 50 buy-ins, even if you are among the best of the players, you are still having a real chance of going broke. And if you are staying at the same level you started at, but if you are moving down when your bankroll goes down, I think with 50 buy-ins you are going to do quite okay. And if you are playing professionally, you should be going for... I think 250 buy-ins is not overestimating what you will require if you want to be quite stable at one level. Like, I think about 250 buy-ins is about... It's about the level that you shouldn't care about the swings that much anymore, because you are always having enough. You are always having enough chips or always having enough buy-ins, and even when you are swinging 50 buy-ins, if you are having 250 buy-ins, you don't care that much because it's just such a small amount of your bankroll, and 50 buy-in swings in sit and goes will happen like once every 1,000 or 2,000 games. And Transcendel says that is taking shots okay in sit and goes, and how would you approach that? I think you can take shots, but even with shots, I would advise not going farther than the 50 buy-ins. But even though you are having something like if you are having something like 200 buy-ins, I think you can take a shot like if you wanna go up really aggressively and try to keep at 100 buy-ins bankroll management, I think it's going to be okay if you take a shot for when you are like 70 buy-ins for the next level, and then drop down if you are dropping down to 50 buy-ins on the previous level. And that's going to be really aggressive, but and when I say that go first up to 70 and drop down from 50, is that I think there needs to be some padding, like you can get comfortable at the higher buy-ins, and what I'm usually saying that don't move all your games at once to a higher level. Like when you are moving to a higher level, start with adding one table at the higher level on your normal set. And that way you are going to get to know the regs on the higher level. You are going to increase your tolerance for swings. Like, I think most people are underestimating how much does it matter for you to be really comfortable in poker. And Callion says that taking shots to win back money is lost in session so far. Awesome idea. Nope. Every shot, if you are taking shots, you should have some reason why you are taking the shot. And you should have a plan. And if you are not having a plan, then you are doing it wrong. And plan can't be that I lost $500 today and I need to get it back. If you are doing that, it might work once or twice, and it's about the worst thing that can happen to you, because then you are going to do it later on, and you are going to have some spectacular going for brokes. Ace 4 off. I think that Info is going to be opening pretty close to 60%, even though on my stats it's 39%, but it's from different games. And Ace 4 off is, I would like to get the pot here and now. Here and now, and I think that it's going to be better for if I would have something like Ace 4 suited, I would have called, because then there are a lot more solid flops that I can hit. And then it's a question on does my opponent float, or has he hit anything on that board? Actually, I think that the second barrel is going to be, it's going to be quite close if it's Pooey or not. It's something that I'm going to do with pretty much all the queens there, but and Callian says that on this flop, I think it's best to check fold. It could have been an option. It's pretty much you are checking and you are giving up, or when you have raised pre-flop. Like there, when my opponent min bet calls a 3-bet, I'm thinking that he's still not, that there are still plenty of hands in his range that does not solidly connect to that board. Table 2, 4-7 suited, close to calling. It was here, the 4-7 suited was, I think, when there were two opponents, like raise and a call. If my opponent would have min raised, that would have been an easy call, but if my opponent would have min raised, then it would have been an easy call. But with 4-7 suited, when there is, actually it's going to be quite close, but I think the problem is that we are never going to hit anything. We are never going to hit close to nuts here. And when we have just flatted, I'm actually pretty close to floating there as well. Like there are, I think in that situation, there every button does have its merits, and I think the equities are going to be quite close. Because I think Abarone is going to c-bet quite often, so there should be a lot of crap in his range, so raising would have merits, and calling would have merits because we are still in quite good standing against his range, but then we are only having 3 outs that are going to improve our hand by a lot, so that makes calling a bit worse. And that makes folding a bit better. And there are 3 outs that are going to improve our hand somewhat. And Callion said that just so much stuff Villain can be calling in such flop. Yeah, and Callion says that Ayaguru is a reg also. Yeah, like usually when you are seeing someone as supernova, usually it means that they are probably a reg, but not always. And there are some players like CJ ZM. I think if he's from China, he has been a reg on 50-50s or something a year or 2 ago. So these games are going to be quite reggy. Quite reggy right now, and there are going to be some good reg battles. And I haven't, like, when I'm playing for these streams, I don't game select much. So you are getting quite a view what the games look like if you are just opening every table that opens. So, but usually I don't mark players as regs if I haven't had enough hands on them myself. And in here, it's just going to be that I haven't played against all of these players in a year, and I think my poker tracker is discarding hands that are older than a year. And this hasn't been my main game. I think in here we are going for a value, even though flush draw comes through. I think there's value to be had. And when our opponent didn't have interest in the pot on the turn, I think he's going to fold pretty much everything. And this is something that with these antes is going to get a lot easier. When someone just min raises, it's going to be really hard for you to fold on the big blind because the price is going to be so great. Like right now it's close to 1 in 8, and we are like getting priced in for call there with just the set mining. So like we are pretty close to being priced into set mining, even though we would expect to get no value out of our opponents. And Callion, it's the more you are playing, the more you are knowing that the unknown players are quite likely being quite bad. And in here I can see that there are players that have played a lot of hypers, like Abaron, Steve M1267, Mfo. I'm having this much hands on these guys because they have played hypers during the last year. But I think in hypers, the 9max hypers have been hit quite hard with the introduction of spin and goes. And I think that there are players that have played a lot of those 9max hypers, and they are trying to find out extra volume from these turbos. But I think that there should be some some randoms in these games as well. Like Sweaty looks to be a quite promising player that I would like to play against. But I must say that these tables do not look juicy. And it might be that the opponents are also not having that many hands on me. So might be that they are thinking that there is a tasty fish joining these tables. And we can see on these tables, like $15 and $30 tables, that these are a lot tougher than the $1.5 and $3.5 games. And we are getting a lot less opportunities to increase our stack size with little risk. And as Kallian says, that whale from Finland on the tables, but it was pretty awesome that when I registered to these games, I noticed that, whoa, there's a player from Estonia. That's random. That usually there are not a lot of players from Estonia in these 9-max sit and goes. Then it's like, oh well, it was my registration that was from Estonia, so I wonder that when I'm playing these players, there is a player from Estonia. So I'm thinking that probably says that I'm not at my most awake or at my most aware moments right now. And I must say that when I went to a break, and usually I try to drink a lot because it makes wonders for your voice when you are speaking all the time. And I took Coca-Cola as well. But because I'm a idiot, I poured milk on both of the cups. And well, you are noticing when you are pouring milk in Coca-Cola that it doesn't taste like it should taste. So don't do it. Don't be an idiot just because I am. And don't you can try it at home, so it's not dangerous, but it's just stupid. But it usually says something about being aware, like doing the little stupid mistakes. And usually that's not a good mental state to play poker if you are doing small and stupid mistakes. And it's also it speaks volumes from or about Deja as well, that when I said that I'm so damn stupid when I noticed that my Coca-Cola isn't what it should be, she asks the first thing from me that, what happened? Do I need to clean it up? And Kauris84 says that go to YouTube, you can see what happened if you play poker and drink alcohol. Kauris, I still have nightmares on the night. But it was actually pretty cool that we did manage to get one MTT victory from the night when both of the coaches were pretty much completely wasted. It was fun while it lasted, but... And also it was fun to see the results. But it wasn't fun watching the video later on. It's something that I said that don't try this at home. Really nasty with about 30 big blinds. Really nasty spot with a pair of jacks. It would be easy if our opponent opens like 3x. But that's something that's not going to be a nice situation to be in. I'm going for broke with pair of jacks even against the UTG Open. I think Air Twist opens enough from UTG and is aggressive enough with the 3 bets and 4 bets for it to be profitable. And Calleon set pretty optimistic looking 3-bet with jacks, in my opinion. I think it's one of those spots that it's going to be close. And it just like, as I said, it's going to be nasty. Nasty situation. We are not priced into set mine. Not even close. We are... It doesn't feel nice to just call. It feels too weak to fold, and 3-betting also feels a bit optimistic, so I think every button feels like it's a bad... Every button feels like it's not the optimal choice. But it's just like you just need to pick the least bad option. And the problem is that do you have any 3-bet bluffing range from those positions? That's actually a good point. Good point, and I shouldn't have that much. And in here we are getting great odds. Less than 20% pot odds, and we are having a suited hand with 1 big card, so it's something that even from against the UTG Open, when the UTG just min raise or UTG +1 just min raises, we are just getting way too good odds to fold, in my opinion, from the big blind. And we don't need to win a lot of those pots. This is kind of a special play, and this is all about the... no. I thought that the stack sizes were... or the blinds were higher already. Actually, it would be pretty close to... With the antes, it would be closer to a shove than without antes, with those... with those stack sizes. And Calleon, you are having a point there that do I really have a 3-bet bluffing range from those positions? And that's a good point, but also it doesn't make it, or it doesn't make the other options that much better. And Kubery once wrote that there are 3 ways to play jacks and they are all wrong. And oh, how true it is. I think pair of jacks is one of those hands in that position that's probably the... Actually, pocket tens would be pretty much just as hard to play. And personally, I would flat jacks there. Now we're just trying to get from SLR the most that we can get when we are hitting the flush. It could have been a bluff on the river as well if we are not hitting a flush there. And Calleons that might not even have a 3-betting range at all versus regs. Yeah, that's an option too, to base your strategy in only calling or folding on those spots. Then your hands are better hidden. But I don't know, it's still... I'm thinking that against the general UTG opening range, when you can't play, like if you are having an overcard there, it's like 53 or 47% of those flops that you can't play strongly, and there are... I don't think that general UTG opening range for regs would be that wide that we can go that much wider from the set mining ideas. And Silverboy GR, we are now discussing about the situation that we are having an open before us. We are never open limping jacks, but there are situations that we might call. And that's like a nasty situation. If our opponent would have like 20 big blinds he raises, it would have been an easy shove for us with jacks. But with that 30 big blinds, I'm thinking that that's one of those situations that all of the options, like all of the buttons I'm having here, are going to be quite close in equity. And I think that folding is going to be way too weak with jacks, and then it's about calling or 3-betting. And as Callan said, that against the reg, I might like having like no 3-betting range and calling my whole range that I want to play in that situation. When MFO raises small, actually that's not that small because he's effectively a lot deeper against Sweaty. And I think with pocket fours it's going to be optimal to just go for it right now, because it's going to be more scarier for MFO as well. And we are against an ace-jack suited, and we don't win the flip. But no matter. No matter. He had called us from the big blind and min raised the flop. Continues to barrel on. I think that even when we are having the second pair and top kicker, I don't think that we are having good enough equity still. And Calleon says that the thing with 3-bet call, yeah, I think that's something that would need to be looked through. Like what does a reg have there as a general opening range, and what do they 4-bet shove? Because there are a lot of assumptions there. And hello, Mr. Rock Solid. And for Calleon, like, you are bluffing spot like ace-jack off, I believe, and not something like ace-jack suited. As I believe that ace-jack suited would play pretty well against an opponent. Or would ace-jack suited would play really well as a call. That's something that I don't like when I'm having queen 3 suited. I think Abarone is one of those opponents that is going to be among the widest players, or playing among the widest ranges at those spots. But actually I should have shoved against him, I think. Because he's one of those players that is going to min raise about the widest, and he's playing a polarized range for sure. I think there will be too much crap, so it's not a balanced polarized range. And it's going to be quite an interesting situation when there are two regs. Two regs on the table, and there is one question mark. And in these situations, being able to steal a lot would mean a lot. But I think like Abarone and Air Twist are amongst the widest opening regs here, so I'm going to be in a pinch here. If I don't get any cards or get any spots, then it's going to be me that's going to be in danger. Table 3. What's table 3 here? Is it the bottom left or the top right? And ace-5 off, don't you see min-raise fold reasonable? I see min-raise fold reasonable. I just think I see ace-5 off better as a shove in this situation. Because we are having a lot of pre-flop equity and we are going to get quite screwed if one of our opponents just calls. And it's going to be profitable for sure if we shove. With all the antes already in the pot. And now that we are getting min-raised again against Abaron, and this is not a whole lot better hand. And we are against the polarized top range right now. But on that top left table, I think that the situation is quite nasty because it gets to a folding war and there are two aggressive regs that are taking all of my spots. So then it's going to be taking a stand, and I'm happily taking a stand against a reg that is likely having too much bad hands in his range and that spot. But unfortunately he did have pocket tens, that's a top 5% hand, so that's what I'm expecting to see as the min-raise value range that he's going to min-raise call with. And that's also something that when you are against the top range, you shouldn't get discouraged and and then the worst thing is like playing against Abarone after that, like he's always having a good hand against me. Because he had it's easier to remember those situations. And Calleon, it's going to be one of the weakest hands. I'm just thinking on that situation that even though I'm thinking that I want to take a bit more risks than ICM would dictate. And that's because of the situation on the tables. That I believe that my stack is worth less than ICM would dictate my stack to be worth in that situation, because there are going to be so many steals against me. Like I'm going to leak blinds a lot and I don't have opportunities in stealing myself when there are two players that are stealing pretty much every hand. And Calleon said that chip lead had been playing passively, I think. I think he had raised every hand or 3 out of 4 hands that he's the first one to open. Like, I think unopened chip lead played pretty aggressively. Cut off. If he opens more than 25 to 30%, then this is going to be a good call. And if he opens less, I think it's not. It's like take another look at that later on. And yeah, having a chip lead behind is something that should be tightening his range a bit. But I think the problem is there that he's in the same pinch in that situation that he needs to play aggressively, or if he plays aggressively, he might get some spacing between him and the last place player. So I'm thinking that there are points in playing tighter in that spot, and there are also points in trying to steal aggressively at that spot still. But I agree that I might have been too aggressive in going for a shove with king deuce off. So that's something that I agree on, and that's something that probably should have checked, like how much our opponent needs to fold on his min-raise range for it to be profitable. I'm just thinking, like, for every min-raise call hand, he probably has something like 3 or 4 min-raise fold hands in range. And in the top left, we are going for no style points, but we are going for what gets most chips in. And when we are having an unknown opponent, actually we can shove here. There are so many draws that our opponent can have that he wants to go broke now, but doesn't want to go broke sometime in the future. Or doesn't want to go broke if he misses the river. One of those nasty spots. This is going to be a profitable shove as well. I'm just thinking if it's going to be more profitable to... Actually, this is probably a better as a shove. And when the blinds increase, actually... Nasty stack size. Our opponent limped and then checked the flop. And when he checked the flop, I think that it's likely that he's not having a king or a queen. So we're just going for a cheap showdown. We don't want to get into a large spot against another big stack here. And Silverboy GR asks for the aces hand, would it be acceptable to shove on the flop? And I think the pot size on the flop would be pretty low, and I think that we are getting way more chips in if we are just calling here. Then we are giving our opponents more opportunities to bluff his equity away. So I'm rather here giving my opponent opportunity to bluff again on the next turn. We are still having position, so we get to decide on if he checks the turn. We can bet the turn for sure. And as I said that we are not going for style points there. We are going for maximum amount of chips to our side. Like, I'm thinking that shoving the flop would be profitable, but I don't think it would be the most profitable move. I agree with Calleon that calling, raising small, and raising small is way better than a shove there. Are there going to be enough weak aces? Like, there will be a lot of pocket pairs, but will there be weak, something like weak suited aces enough? I think that there will. And the range is going to be quite polarized, so I'm either flipping or then I'm in a really good shape. And I'm in a really good shape, but I don't think that I'm running that well on these games. And Kauris says that call flop, call turn, and river shove. Like, on that turn I also thought that should I raise small? It wasn't the nicest of stack situations. And of course, now that we are having... And we are going all in on the next hand, for sure. And Kauris says that he can try a bet on the river when he bets the flop and turn. Yeah, but also if he has a busted draw, we are not getting any more chips out of him. But if he has a draw, he pretty much can't fold when we are shoving the turn. So I think I'm getting a lot out of the draws if I shove the turn compared to other options. We have seen this opponent. We have seen this opponent limp 3-4 off. Actually, that would. Actually, when we know that, then we are pretty much, we can't discount any of the weak hands, but we can know that generally our opponent will have a weaker hand when he limps there. And Calleon said that Ace-Jack would call as well as Villain would likely be min-raising his top range. I think Ace-10 suited would be fine as well. Yeah, I think like the shape of the range is going to consist of mostly pocket pairs and weak aces. And against those hands we are playing pretty well with a good ace there, so... Like I said on the spot that we are either flipping or we are in a really good shape. And excellent opportunity. There is not that much of ICM pressure anymore because we are through the bubble already. And we are getting a big pot. And I love big pots and I cannot lie. And Calleon said that he easily has a lot of suited broadways and king-jack type hands also. But those are hands that with ace-jack I'm playing really well against those hands. And Kauris says that fish or drunk this guy. I think he's a player that I like to play against. I think he's playing quite honestly his hands, so... And like, honesty will take you far, far, far in life, but if you are brutally honest in a poker table, you are losing in opportunities. And I'm trying to get the most out of this guy on the river when we are having trip queens. So I got our opponent opportunities to bet against me, but unfortunately he wanted to bet only one street against me. And Calleon says that lower table becoming one of those chip and chair examples. Yeah, for sure. We had like one big blind and like 24 chips over one big blind, and now we are back in the game. Even though we are fourth in chips, it's going to be that we are quite close to the number one in chips. This top left table is going to be interesting in a way that our opponent folds a lot of the hands pre-flop, and he also will make us situations that it's going to be quite good for us to see a lot of flops cheaply, because he seems to be betting pretty close to a pot no matter what happens. So when we are hitting, I think that we are getting a big pot. And something like ace-9 off is going to be a hand that I want to be 3-betting here for sure. But then it's a question, do I want to 3-bet it small or do I want to shove it? And now he bets small. It's now going to be a thinking game on thinking how my opponent is shaping his bets, because he's varying his bet sizes a lot. He's varying his bet sizes a lot on the flop, so sometimes he bets the whole pot, and now we want him to bet the whole flop. And because there are not a lot of strong hands that our opponent can fold, I'd like to keep it less threatening to him. And then it's also, I'm not going to try to get any style points, but I wanna grow the pot on the turn already. In general, I'm up for it to play pretty much any two cards if our opponent is betting a lot, but if he's still betting a tight range and limping some of his hands, I think that it's going to be better to fold the bottom of our range. And because our opponent has post-flop bet so much, I think that this is like a equity call from on the flop and the turn. That we are having enough equity to call against the opponent's range. And against this kind of opponent, how we are playing against an opponent that is betting pretty much all the time he's on post flop, it's going to be that we are going to go for equity calls a lot earlier, and we are going to call hands, and we are also going to bluff some situations that if he's betting 85%, there is going to be a lot of crap in his range as well. And when there's going to be a lot of crap in his range, he's going to fold against those bets, so we are going to bluff him with the weak hands. And also we are going to call him down easier. I think King 10 suited is strong enough to raise there. And Transcendel says that you wanna improve heads up in sit and go. Does game history matter, or if it's a completely new situation? I think in heads up, generally opponents are going to change their strategy by a lot. So I think like heads up is going to be quite a different situation. And that's something that I think that from Bezar, C-Jet is not going to be a good call. And I wanna check that one out after the session, because I don't think that he should be calling there when there is a small stack on the table and he's having the second largest stack on the table. I don't think he should call. Something like ace king off might even not be a call there. And on average, it might even not be a bad strategy for opponent to bet every time I'm checking. Like, I think like on the average, players are just bottom pair. And in this situation, it's also going to be hard for me to play this hand at any, or have any possibility in playing this hand. I think a min raise could have been in order with a good hand. But we are getting a lot of equity by getting these two guys to butt heads together. And the smaller stack won, so it puts us into harder situations. And generally I outlined our play strategy against this Yai2 Aso, but we haven't been able to convert those situations. But now we got him. Yes! And sorry for any hearing loss caused. That's just something to be happy about. And against this kind of a guy that has raised about 2/3 of his range, with something like Queen Jack off, we are going to dominate a really good part of his range. So let's just get the money in and I think that was the 4th win on this session. So that's okay. And this is the largest table size we can get from PokerStars. Crap. Crap. This looks so weak, but I just have to do it. I'm trying to calculate the different situations in my mind, and if I shove, he's folding every time, and Abarone is calling something like 30 or 40%, and I'm getting screwed every time he calls, and also Bezar can call. And if I'm min raising there, if air twist folds, then Abarone is going to shove and I'm getting screwed. And if everybody folds to air twist, then he can shove and Abarone will call with every hand. So they are, I think, like air twist and Abarone are flipping, and that's quite a real possibility. And with the second smallest stack, I don't think that there's like any point in shoving against Bezar, because he's going to call. Like, my stack is not in the slightest mean a threat to him, so he'll call with anything and I'll lose money. But this is one of those interesting situations in the bubbles. I think with the King Jack off we can review that. And why were the sixes a fold? That's actually a good question, and we'll come to it later. We are having a better hand than half of, like, we are having a top 40s percentage hand. I think that could have been a call or a shove. And Kauris84 says that he doubles up and you lose, and that's bad. Yeah, but there's an opportunity that he doesn't double up and he gets out of this tournament, and then my equity rockets up higher. And even when he doubles up, I haven't lost this game. That's a really important distinction to make. I have not lost this game. 325 for the next hand. Our opponent is going to be all in before us. There's going to be 4 hands for us before we are all in. So, and it's going to be only 3 hands before he's all in. About the structure, is the next level with the 50 chip blinds? Oh crap, it's 50 chip blinds, not 25 chip blinds. I screwed it up. I screwed the calculations up. I thought this was with 25 chip antes. Ugh. My opponent screwed the calculation up even worse than I did. That's awesome. Just as planned. That increased my equity by crap ton. And actually, I need to mark that last hand. And as Deja said that no style points awarded. Yeah, but I did screw up the calculation pretty much completely. I shouldn't be screwing up the calculation that badly. And it was like I screwed the calculation up by 3 chips. So it's not by a lot, but if you are screwing the calculation up by 3 chips, you are still screwing the calculation up. But let's go see some of the last hands, like, let's see the hands report. And this was the hand that the air twist called. And this is one of those hands that I think this will highlight a lot how nasty the bubble is. Let's take the Hold'em Resources calculator up. And think about what would be a good range for air twist to call. When on the next hand it's going to be guaranteed that I'm going to be all in. And like I'm going to be all in for the next 2 hands. If we are seeing an opponent or the Bezar C-Chet shoving any 2, like he should, then for air twist to call with pocket 4s, he's losing 2.2% of the prize pool. So when the prize pool is about 9 or 8 times as high, it's like our opponent is losing 18 percentage points of ROI by this call with pocket 4s. And T-Show said that when you were at the small blind and Reg min raised the button, that was bad. The big blind will abuse him every time with 2 short stacks. Am I correct? I I'm unsure because it will also be like, think about it this way. Besar Sichet knows that the Abarone is a reg, and when Abarone is a reg and he knows that Besar knows, like if Abarone min raises there, what kind of hand should he min raise? Especially if Besar should shove with a really wide range. Like then Abarone can min raise hands that are pretty value heavy hands that he doesn't need to fold against Besar's shove. So then when you are adjusting to and from, it might be that I think the Abarone will get to a strategy where he is min raising a polarized range, but the polarized range will contain a lot more nuts. Like I think it's either 50-50 or 66-33 or something like that. So like two nutty hands and one bad hand, and then Besar can't shove that much against him. So that's like fold and fold. And Desafinado said that check king 10 off, please. And that's going to be an interesting hand. It's this hand, I think. And this is going to be an interesting hand because I folded this hand by the exactly because I thought that air twist will be big blind the next hand, and when he's the big blind, he's going to flip against Besar. And when he flips, I'm going to gain a lot of equity on the next hand anyway. And if I shove that hand and I don't get to see the next hand, I'm thinking that I'm losing out a lot of equity because then I don't get to see the collision that will happen. And this is the range that Hold'em Resources calculator would show me. And I think that this might be correct, but I think that this is slightly too wide. I think this is slightly too wide. And I don't think my opponent is going to fold a lot there. Because of the pot odds he's going to be getting. And the more our opponent calls, even though his range gets weaker, the tighter our range gets. I would have shoved like ace queen off for sure. And something like pocket 8 would be probably from the pocket pairs. But I don't think that you can shove king 10 off here. Or our opponent would need to fold a ton. And Kauris, it's not even that we are min cashing if we are folding this. Like, we are still having 2 big blinds left. So we are having an opportunity to get even a better cash, but we are... If we are shoving this and if we are like... I'm thinking this situation like this. If I'm shoving this hand, then I'm probably about 60% on his range and 40% on not seeing the next hand. And even when I'm 60% to win the hand, there are still some situations that I'm not getting in the money even though I won this hand. Might be like there's 15% that we don't see the pot, and then there is like 65% of the time I'm happy if I shove this. But the 35% of the time I walk away with nothing. If I fold this and my opponents are going to do a real flip during the next hand, I'm getting at least 50% to get the money during the next time. So, and that's guaranteed money. So I'm making the money for sure, and I'm walking away with at least 20% of the prize pool. and I'm having an opportunity to get even better. And if my opponent wins, then we are just having equal stack sizes after that. So and Kauris, I think that you have played a lot of MTTs, and MTTs are a lot different. In these games, it's about the value it's going to be very ICM heavy in the bubble. And I think there are some good hands from today that will show the ICM heaviness. And there's the pocket sixes hand as well. I folded from the big blind. And that's actually also pretty nice hand to show. Like in here there's the sword stack and there are the pocket sixes. And we are having like 3 big blinds. And Calleon, it's going to be a bit more involved hand, and I'm unsure, do I wanna take that much? Especially since I haven't marked the hand. But like Bezar can shove any 2, and if he shoves any 2, then pocket sixes is a call. And what's wrong in this image, in my opinion? Actually, I should check that. How much do I have the FGS on? Because this is a really future game simulation oriented situation. Because this is also about this button. We wanna go some hands in the future when this button guy is all in. And I think that the Hold'em Resources calculator is not doing a good job with future game simulation in this point. I'm thinking that the range is going to be way too wide, it suggests for me. Even now, I think that the range is going to be way too wide. And it's going to be that the future game simulation is going to think like... Now it's going to think 3 hands in the future. But the problem of those hands that it's thinking in the future is that the hands that it's thinking in the future aren't thinking in the future. So like the next hand is going to play as a Nash hand according to just that hand's ICM situation. So there is no FGS in the next hand. So this, even though this pocket sixes would be a call against any 2 range, I think that this is a spot that we are going to call with something like probably pocket 8s plus and fold everything else. If it's not paired, we don't want to play it. Like ace king suited, I think it's going to be a fold here. And desafinado, I don't think that king 10 is better in this situation. I think sixes is better. Because I think that Bezar is going to be pretty close to any 2 range here. So I think pocket 6 is going to play better, but it's still going to be too weak. Then there's the king jack off, and it's going to be pretty much the same situation. Same situation we are already looking at, and it doesn't take into account this short stack as much as it should. And Calleon said that how heavy calculation would it be with FGS 3 if it would calculate the next hand is FGS 2 and the next hand is FGS 1. It would be insanely heavy calculation, but it's something that it also shows you that there are things that humans are doing better than calculators in poker. Something like simulating the equity for the next hands, it's really compute intensive to do correctly. And I don't say like really compute intensively easily, but it's something like if you are wanting to go 4 hands in the future, like you can pretty easily go like, hey, there is a guy that in 4 hands he's going to be all in, and that will affect our ranges pretty considerably. And human can do it really easily. But for a computer to do the same, it's like... It's going to be like, oh, you are having a supercomputer? Shall I take the whole year? Or should I be complete in some months or something? And Transcendel, yeah, it's... The future game will make me tighter because of the sword stack. But it's also going to be that, as I tried to explain before, because of the situation that if I'm seeing the hand where this guy is going to be put into all in by the blinds, I'm going to gain a lot of equity on that hand. So then being tighter right now will be pretty important for me. So, like in this situation, I think it's a situation that Hold'em Resources calculator can't calculate easily, because this is damn hard thing for a computer to calculate. And I think this is going to be a fold. The Queen 6 suited. This was an interesting situation. I was asking about, should Besar call me with... What did Besar call me with? It was some crappy hand, I think. And I think in this situation, now it's with the FGS is 3, but it should be okay. When I'm shoving any 2, and then Besar should be calling me with pocket 6s and... Pocket 6s and like... I'm going to be shoving pretty close to any 2. What did Besar call me with? It was king crap something. Ace 9 off. Ace 9 off is actually going to be really close, but it's going to be unprofitable even against the any 2 range. And when it's going to be unprofitable even against the any 2 range, it's going to be unprofitable no matter what. And Kaleon, so how was Villain call in bubble where you would have been all in with the smaller stack? It was the first hand we looked through, and it was minus 2.2% of the prize pool. So it was like 17 or 18 percentage points of ROI to call with pocket force. So it's like pretty horrible call in my opinion. Like with one call he's wasting something like, I think on those games something like 4 or 5 games, 4 to 6 games played correctly. And that was against if the small blind is shoving 100% that he should. So I'm thinking that that was one of the biggest mistakes during this session. And I'm quite lucky that it wasn't our mistake that was one of the biggest mistakes today. Even though it was pretty close that it would have been. As I miscalculated on do we get the... Oh no, glaciers are melting. I forgot the FGS to 3 and then it takes enough time when there are still 6 players remaining that my computer will take part of the global heating or global warming. And there was, if the cutoff is shoving, can I call with ace 6 off, I think. Ace 5 off. And how much our cutoff would need to shove, so let's plot a range versus hand equities, and we are interested in like ace 5 off, ace use of an ace 8 off. And it would require about, I think I said 30 to 40% or 35 to 40%, so I was dead in the money how much our opponent would need to shove. And something like ace 8 off would be, I think it would be a good call. I think like 25 to 30% was what a reg will shove there. And then ace 8 off would be a good call, and ace 5 off would be a bad call against a reg there. What's this hand all about? This was a bubble hand with ace queen. And this Cleo shoves, and this was like, if Krisinha would have shoved, what would my range be even if he shoves 100%? Because I said that it's going to be pretty tight. And like if Krisinha shoves, then my range would consist of ace king off, ace 10 suited plus and sevens plus. So it was wider than I thought. I thought it was something like jacks or tens plus. And if like Cleo Wyatt shoves, then I can call with a lot wider range when he's having a shorter stack than I have. Even though his range is going to be a lot tighter than Krisinha's. And this is, like, for Kauris especially, this is why the sit and goes are so much different than MTTs. Like, there's huge difference in the chip value and getting it in ahead and the monetary value of the stack. And desafinado, just king 10 wins vodka. Wins vodka. If I wouldn't know better, I would say that's quite Russian thing to say. Because that's something that they are doing pretty well in there. Let's see if I can get the pocket jacks hand. If we are looking at the jack, if we are taking a quick look at how often does our opponent need to fold there. So let's replay the hand because there was a lot of talk during the hand about this as well. So let's go through this hand really quickly. Air twist, that's an aggressive reg opens. And then I'm in a bad situation in here. Like, if this would be the next blind level, the 40-80, this would be an easy shove. Easier than easy shove. But on 25-50, even with antes, this is like, I don't want to shove this. And my opponent is likely having a pretty tight range. And then it's pocket jacks, I don't want to fold this. And it's then going to be, should I call or should I 3-bet small? And I opted for a small 3-bet. I thought that it would be better. And I thought that this guy would be aggressive enough to shove against me so that going for a raise call would be profitable still. And Evaristo, greetings from Portugal, greetings to Portugal. It makes me a bit sad of hearing all of the people from the sunny countries coming up here and we are still having not winter, but it's cold in here and wind is blowing and you still need to wear a hat outside because otherwise you are freezing your ears off. But with the pocket jacks, then we are thinking about what kind of range our opponent needs to open. And when it's a 4-bet calculation, actually this is going to be so nasty for the computer to calculate. The calculation type would be 4-bet and re-raise sizing. Wow. And then we wait. This doesn't look so bad after all. And this isn't so bad, but this is quite bad. And Desafinada's like 4-bet fold. I'm thinking that if we are 3-betting this hand, then there's a... I don't think that we would like to fold after a 3-bet. Because there would be enough money in the pot already, and there should be some ace-king hands that our opponent can shove, and something like ace-queen as well. Depends on how often should I fold there after a 3-bet. This is a hand that's going to be a question on... It's going to be a question of ranges, and it's going to be like just adding just a few combinations will tilt this hand back and forward. And Evaristas, I think that the Portugal is going to be like Portugal is right now, it's about the best place in Europe to be if you like to play poker. I think like if you are from Portugal, poker is tax-free for you. You can play on pretty much any site you want. And there is like no national poker like there is in Spain. And Desafinada said that just call for a set, but in here, if we are just calling for or set mining, we are having only 13 times more, so if we are calling to set mine here, we would need to get our rest of our opponent's stack like... We would need to get rest of our opponent's stack or at least 750 chips more value, so that would make... Like we would need to be... When we are hitting the set, we would need to get our opponent's stack more than 60% of the time, and we should never lose against a bigger set or a flush or something. So we would need to get the rest of our opponent's stack with a really large precision. And not for just set mining. Yeah, like there is some value in the hand for and opportunities to win the pot with other than set mining. Like there is a lot more value in pocket jacks than like a hand of pocket deuces. But like air twist's range would be... I think this is going to be way too wide of a range. I'm thinking like this would be pretty optimistic range for a reg. And right now, like, if I'm having an opportunity to either 3-bet or fold, and actually my 3-bet sizing is a bit too big, but then like pocket jacks would be at the absolute lowest end. And then it would make my opponent to 4-bet with pocket 9s and ace-10 suited. I don't think that my opponent would shove something like king-queen off. If my opponent would shove those, then how it would change my... It's... Like if I'm having 9s here as a 4-bet shove, I think then it's going to be an... When I remove 9s, then pocket jacks is going to be completely on the edge. Like, I think this is going to be the deciding factor. That how much my opponent is shoving. And if my opponent is shoving like only the value hands, it will be really tight. And he might be opting for a call with ace-kings here. I think that would be smart. And if he's like thinking that I'm never bluffing and going for just value here, just value is going to be pretty nasty range. And there's like pocket 10s is there, not for value, but it's... I think it plays better on that way. And is he opening king-queen suited from UTG? I think that's like the most reasonable range, or like the most reasonable range I could come up with. And Keleon, like, I think shoving pocket nines is pretty spooky without info that you are 3-bet bluffing sometimes. Yeah, nines is probably spooky, but we saw that even against an aggressive opponent, even with nines, even with if nines would be a shove. And now we also need to remember that when I remove the ace kings that are going to be calls more often, this does not understand the situation that there will be equity for me in the situations when our opponent just... There will be equity for me in the situation that our opponent just calls. Yeah, I think that King Queen suited is going to be okay. King Queen off is going to be more of a discussion. I have seen some regs opening from, or the most aggressive regs are opening, starting from King Queen. And if I'm tightening up this range a bit, and actually no, it's the other way around. When I'm having only 4-bet calculations and I'm not including the hands my opponents will call, then I'm always winning at least my opponents bet in those, so this is too rosy of a picture. And if we would like to 3-bet as value in here, if our opponent is opening a tighter range from UTG, then I think that with the reminder that we are having a too rosy of a picture, actually pocket queens would be profitable, and pocket jacks would be pretty close to break even, I think. And I think this also shows you that there are a lot of different opinions on how our opponent's range will be. Will be constructed, because it seems to me that every player will have an opinion. Every player will have a different opinion on what the range will be. But I think in here we can see that if our opponent is opening a large range and only shoving with pocket tens, then pocket jacks is going to be a really good 3-bet. Not a great 3-bet, but still a good 3-bet. And if our opponent is opening a tight range, then pocket jacks is going to be a break-even 3-bet. And we'll also need to remember that if we are just calling with pocket jacks, we are getting some equity that way as well. But I think this is going to be, like, this is one of the harder hands to analyze correctly, because there are so many options that people can do when there are 30 big blinds left, and with the calculators we are so prone to make a mistake with these calculators and thinking, like, if we are looking at here that this is 0.16, that it's going to be the almighty truth because it's an accurate number. But in this situation we know that these numbers are changing like 0.5 up and down depending on just small changes in our opponent's opening range, so it's like, who knows. It looks like a number that's quite accurate, but in real life there will be a lot of difference between the number, and because it depends so much on the ranges of our opponents. So I think this is those parts that we are now gone through all of the hands, and we have done a pretty nice and long session and a good test on our new server. So next time we are going to do some more interesting stuff. And for the Finns, there will be a MTT session on Thursday in Finnish. It will be Rigsy's public-private coaching on MTT sit and goes. And I think it's going to be pretty epic since there haven't been a lot of MTT material in Finnish in a while. On next week we are still having a Sunday tournament session. I don't yet know what we are going to do. We might do 6-max sit and goes because the 6-max turbos did get the same treatment from the Ante police than these 9-max sit and goes. So those games are also pretty much brand new. So that's something to take into account. And there are really good comments on Kaleon. And there will also be, for our English viewers, there will be Kyberis Omaha on Wednesday. So thank you everyone for watching this. And thanks for active chat today. It's always easier and nicer to hold a coaching when there are people active in the chat. And I'll hope to see you next week on the next week's session. And if you are going to sleep, have a good night. If you are still playing poker, may this be a winning night for you. Bye!